Welcome to the Passion of Entrepreneurship. I'm Ravi Tangri, and every weekday in June, I am bringing you an incredible entrepreneur to share their journey, what brought them into this field, this crazy world of running our own show, and what keeps them going as they move forward through challenging times, such as perhaps we're in now. And I'm delighted today to have a wonderful friend of mine, Mike Domitrz, join me, who is well known for his work on respect in relationships and mutually amazing relationships. And Mike, I know that you have a very powerful story that launched, the career that's brought you here. But before we come to that, did you have before that any sort of entrepreneurial exploration or journey, or was this something that was brand new when this happened?
Oh, first of all, hi, Ravi. Good to see you. That's a good question. I had a go-getter sales mentality.
Yes.
So I was a newspaper delivery boy and would try to really make sure I gave great service so you get good tips. When there was fundraisers, I would always try to make sure I won top fundraising, whatever that prize was.
You were that person.
I was that person. Yeah. I won a moped in high school. When
Wow.
mopeds first came out for sales. So, it's part of a fundraiser. I shouldn't say for sales. It was part of a fundraiser, but I would try to be the most pizza sales, the most candy. I would be like 12 years old and I try to walk into the local bars and sell my candy to the people in the bar. So I had the mentality of sort of no fear, would maybe be the word to put it.
Right.
But I was a performer. I was a theater major before this happened.
Okay. So, but you've got that competitive spirit added to that, right? Whoops, lost my earwig there. But you've got that competitive nature that you said you had to not just sell, but you had to be the best there.
Yeah, and that was absolutely a big part of it, Robbie. No doubt about it. Was this idea that you gotta win the prize, you gotta do that. And yes, I had that in me and I had that competitiveness either deep within me or in me for most of my life. And so I actually had to learn how to pull that back for best case scenario.
So it's interesting that you had that and then you were going into theater, because you would think when you had that, you might, and since you were so into sales from like say 12 years old, that a business career might be more what you would go for.
Yeah, but I loved to be in front of audiences. I loved to perform. It was my heart and my soul. And so it was what I was focused on at that time. And it was funny because my strength in school would be like math, and you'd be in theater and my colleagues would be like, math and theater, your brain is messed up. Cause like, you're not supposed to have both sides, interested. Like one side's supposed to be stronger than the other. So it was a unique combination.
Hey, nuclear physicist didn't coach here. Oh, I get it. So, but then, there was something that happened that completely changed your trajectory, that drove your career moving forward, because you were actually thinking then of going to performing.
Oh yeah, I was a student in college and I was a sophomore and I was doing shows and really things were going very, very well. And I received a phone call, and the phone call was, there's actually a note on my door that said, Mike, call home immediately, on my dorm room door. And I grew up in a close-knit family, mom, dad, 3 older sisters. And so I call home and it's my mom answers and she asks if I'm sitting down. Now, right away, something's gone wrong. And so you start to portray in your mind who died, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent. And my mom proceeds to tell me that the youngest of my older sisters had been raped. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was outraged. I was angry. I was furious. I was lost. I was confused. And over time, I would recognize none of that was helping me. Like it was sending me down a path of confusion and lost. And then I heard a speaker in college and I thought, wait a second. I can do something about this. I can use my voice to do something. And that's where it all began. It was in that moment. And I approached the speaker about how to speak. And that's where it all really, really started.
So before you got there, though, you had to do the work to realize that all of that anger, as you said, was taking you way down the wrong path.
Oh, it was. I went from being a very strong student in college to being very weak grades during all of this because I was struggling psychologically on how to deal with it, emotionally, how to deal with it. And what happened was when I first started speaking, I did not recognize that the anger wasn't doing any good because I came with it. I'd be like, can you believe this is happening? And I came from that voice. That's where I started speaking. But every now and then, and people be like, why are you angry? Like, why are you, and you'd be like, I'm not angry. I'm passionate. That's what I would tell myself. And
Yeah.
then what happened was a professor who knew me would bring me into his classes. And he's like, Mike, when you do that role play, when you do that interaction, people light up, like the room comes energized. That was the moment I understood Robbie. I'm like, I've got to make it about something they want to be able to do, not what not to do, which is what most discussion around my topic was, what to do. And that's when the shift took place. And as I made more of what to do, the fun, the positive, if we're all doing the right thing, we're not doing the wrong thing. So let's focus on the right thing instead of telling people what not to do.
Right. But this is a huge change for you. Can you share with me a little bit? Because you said you saw that speaker and you said I can do something about it, but you actually changed your life trajectory in that. What can you take us through a little bit of the thought process that went through that? That okay, I am not going to go be an actor. I am
Yeah,
going
it
to
was.
go this way.
Yeah, what happened was when this happened to my sister, I sort of looked in the mirror and said, family's everything. And I want to be able to have a family. And the life of theater doesn't exactly fit that projection. It makes it
Okay.
difficult. Now, the irony of this in a moment here is unbelievable because I wouldn't be at home. I'd be performing. I'd be doing all this. What was in my mind. So I was going to shift, and I did. I shifted. I left the university, transferred to one close to home, the one in my hometown, and started studying business. So that's what I was doing. I was studying business. And they were one of the few universities at the time that had entrepreneurship study.
Okay.
And so as I started to gain my voice and I realized this is what I want to do, I realized that's what I want to do. I wanted to build my own speaking business. And that's when everything shifted. Then I had a focus in the business school of building a speaking company. And that's how every class I went into was about how do I take what I want to do and put it in my business. That's what I was doing. I was internalizing every class I could to help me grow my business.
So you started speaking from passion when this happened. And then as you heard the speaker and started seeing this as a possibility, that's when you added all of the structure to it of how
I'll
to
back
do
up a
it.
little bit. I saw the speaker and then recognized I wanted to do this in my major. I want to do this as a business. I want to do
Yeah.
this. And then while out there speaking, I recognized by getting feedback where I wanted to take it, how I wanted to take it by doing it, by getting out and just doing it, by speaking in schools, so that was the key. And I was using a lot of resources. I was turning to professors I trusted and saying, I'm trying to make a pamphlet. So in the marketing class, I was making my sexual assault speaking pamphlet. Whatever the class was, I was trying to apply to that. And I was very active in what was at the time called ACE, Association of Collegiate Entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And so I was very active at the collegiate entrepreneurial level. Even nationally, we were pretty involved.
Okay. So then the time comes that you actually have to create the business and start launching it. So
Well, it didn't work that way. I just launched.
you just launched,
I
even
did.
in
I just
college.
launched like this. I want to speak on this. I'm going to do this. So I didn't gradually build all this material up. I started going, all right, I'm going to tell a local teacher said to me, you need to be doing this everywhere. And I said, okay, how can I get to other schools? So then I started reaching out to the schools. And then in my marketing class, they're like, let's learn how to make threefold flyers. And I'm like,
Yep.
ta-da, I need that for my business. So I was just grabbing and going as I went. There's an old philosophy of entrepreneurship that they shoot and then aim. That true entrepreneurs
I'm
shoot
just
and
running
then
into
aim.
a
They
little
don't aim and then
tech
shoot.
here issue, Mike. I will be right back.
Sure,
Okay, sorry.
no problem.
Yeah.
And so because a lot of entrepreneurs do that, that's what I did. And in studying entrepreneurship, they were like, that's what true entrepreneurs do. They don't write business plans. Investors write business plans.
Yes.
Business managers, business owners are different than entrepreneurs. Like everybody thinks, oh, you own a business, you're an entrepreneur. No, no, no. Entrepreneurs will take much greater risk. They'll put that into the next business. They'll try the next greatest thing. They get bored doing the same thing. And so that was who I was at that time. I'm not that person anymore. I don't consider myself an entrepreneur. What I find interesting is when you look at entrepreneurs, there's very few true entrepreneurs in the world, successful ones, right? The Richard Branson is the rarity.
Yes.
But the real entrepreneur puts everything they just succeeded with back on the line with a new idea. And what most people do is we're super entrepreneur until we find the thing we absolutely love, and then we park, right? And that doesn't mean we're not creative. That doesn't mean we're not trying new things, you and I are building new things within our organizations right now. We're super entrepreneurial in the spirit, but we're not really entrepreneurs because we're not taking that huge risk.
Right. You're not gambling everything on your faith.
Correct.
Moving forward. And that's something I've talked about a lot, that there sometimes is a difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner. And it's
absolutely.
The risk
and an entrepreneur can be risk taker, can be creative, can be all of that. But if you're not putting it all on the line again, like you're not willing to say, I'll take everything and put it on the line, you're typically not being entrepreneurial in that moment.
Right. And, and again, there's a time for that, right? Life cycle changes and so on and so forth.
Well, people give Sam Walton as an example, right? But if you actually look at what Sam Walton did, Sam Walton was an entrepreneur until he succeeded with Walmart. And then he put everything into Walmart and built Walmart. And that's a good example. And we can look all over. Bill Gates, same thing. When they found their thing, they went into their thing. And this was my thing. When I landed here for once and for all, that was actually 10 years later in my story because I came in and out of that journey. But 10 years into that journey we just talked about, I came back to this full time. And since then, I'm not entrepreneurial because I'm where I belong in my one place I belong.
So that's an interesting, perspective that perhaps the entrepreneurial spirit is looking for that groove that is uniquely yours.
I believe that because almost every entrepreneur I know ends up landing on the one thing sooner or later, whether it's 20 years, 10 years, or 1 year. And so I think that's what it is. I think it's the pathway there. The entrepreneurism is the pathway to find the place we belong.
That's a fascinating perspective because, there's so many people you talk to and say that they're an overnight success. And it's an overnight success after 20 years of trying
exactly
different things.
Well, even with my topic, people be like, oh, you've got the hot topic. Well, I've been doing this for 30 years. So this was not Mike Domitrz picking the hot topic. It was always an important topic to me and to many people. And so I was able to find the people that cared about this who wanted to bring in their community. What's interesting is the more hot topic you are, like as a speaker, as an author, you might actually have less ability to have influence. When everybody's talking about a topic, then everybody comes forward as the expert. So as soon as a topic takes over the news, everybody's out there saying they're the next great expert. When people do not have that happening in the news, they turn to the 3, 4, or 5 people that have a track record of doing that over a long period of time, and they trust in those voices. Versus when it's everybody trying to say, I'm now the expert in this. And there's so much saturation, nobody knows who's the expert.
Right. And, you were into this long before it became the hot topic.
Right. And what's sad is it's always been a massive societal problem. Sexual violence, disrespect, always. So what's weird is the term hot topic.
Yes.
Because what it does is it sounds like you're looking for the next hot thing to grab a hold of instead of solving a societal problem. And most great entrepreneurs solve a problem. Now, they don't all solve societal problems, but they solve product problems, they solve distribution problems, but they solve a problem. So if you're focused on solving a problem, you have an entrepreneurial spirit, but so does an inventor, to be fair. I mean, these are some of the differences.
Yeah. And the thing is, this is one of those things that was for so long a hidden problem that even the women felt uncomfortable coming out and speaking about it, right?
Oh, we had still to this day, we really still have a long ways to go before we have a safe environment for people to come forward. What we saw was celebrity cases come forward.
Yes.
But very few of us saw Jordan at the bank come forward. Very few of us saw Aaron at the store come forward.
Right.
Because that's real life, small town, big town. That's different than watching the celebrity cases, the big news cases. We have a long ways to still get there too. And have a culture where we just don't tolerate this kind of treatment, even verbally, of other human beings.
Right. Well, and it's that hidden bias that's in there, right? That's saying that this is okay. Because I was actually involved in university and in grad school in peer ed programs around sexuality and healthy relationships. And I did a study. It was a huge study at the university that I was at. That part of it asked, have you been raped, right?
Yep.
And so you get the typical numbers, 4%, but then another part described all the different behaviors that fall under date rape. And the numbers were 96% of women.
Correct. If you ask somebody whether they've been raped, the odds, even if that person has and knows it, there's a good chance they will not say yes to that. Because by saying yes, I have to also feel the pain of knowing I was raped. So subconsciously, it's safer to say, I'm not sure. Or maybe it wasn't, than to say it was. So when I talk, I tell people, if I brought 100 people into the room who've been sexually active, and I said, how many of you had a partner touch you sexually when you weren't in the mood, you didn't want to be touched? And maybe they did it and you said stop and they did, but they had already sexually touched you without your consent permission. How many of the 100? And everybody's like, duh, all? Maybe at lowest 96, but somewhere between 96 and 100. And I go, yeah, so why are you saying sexual assault happens 1 in 3, 1 in 4? Well, what they're referring to is what federal law calls rape, right? And so what they're not referring to is the slope, right? Which is the beginning level acts of sexual assault that we consider in both of our countries custom ways of people advancing on people sexually, like normal ways that in no way involve consent. It's assumption, it's in a bit of arrogance. Like, I know what they want, I'm going to do it.
Right. And here's the other interesting thing is we tried to use that data to get funding for developing more programs, and the people we went to be sponsors did not believe the data.
Right. Because to believe the data, that means you have to look in the mirror. Right. If 96 people have experienced this, 96 out of 100, that means there's a good chance that 80 out of 100 have done it. Right. Because maybe some people are repeating, it's not all different people. But even so, it's a massive number. So that means I'd have to look in the mirror. Right.
So with this understanding, tell me how you shaped your message so that the people, part of it, what you already identified, tell me what to do versus what not to do. But how did you shape your message so people could move either through or around that guilt or resistance to looking at themselves to really say, okay, what do I need to do? How did that
two techniques that I used, and I train people on how to do training and programming, and these are two techniques that we teach our audiences. And one is you've got to create a safe space, especially on a sensitive topic, for the room to feel they're in unison. If people are in a room feeling there's this group and there's this group and I'm on this group and which one of us is right or wrong, we will shut down except for the 1 or 2 who love debate, right? And you think about it, anytime you're in a large group of people, there's 1 or 2 driving the debate. Everybody else is watching. It's like entertainment, but I'm not getting in, right? And so we don't want that atmosphere. And in speech, a lot of people teach them, be combative, say something that's controversial. Shut down a good portion of the room from wanting to listen. So what I do is I teach to call out a question that everybody would feel safe answering. And odds are 98% of the room is going to yell out the same answer because it unifies the room. So I'm going to yell out that question, let the room answer it, and then all feel safe when they hear the answer because, we're here together. What they don't realize is that answer to the question is also going to be content for where I drive this program. Okay. So for me, I ask a simple question. Do most people ask or go for it? And the whole room yells, ask. Well, and 30 minutes later, when I say, does every human being deserve a choice before somebody does something to their body? And the whole room's like, of course. But wait, you told me you don't give them a choice at the start of the show. And they don't get mad at me because they said those words. I didn't say those words. I didn't come out and go, hey, none of you are asking. No,
Oh, you meant, so
I
they
let
say
them
go for
own
it up front.
Yeah, well, I let them own it instead of me being some intelligent genius trying to tell them, which we know that happens in our world, a talking head. I let them own the journey. And then I do that through call and response. I call out a question, they respond. And then the other thing that we do is we really focus on the how-to by breaking down the barriers. If I can break down all the barriers and I can go through every major reason in the audience they don't do something. We don't ask because we're afraid of awkwardness. We don't ask because we're afraid of rejection. And I can show the silliness of that. So the audience is going, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous that I said that. Or that's ridiculous that I thought that. It leaves the audience going, but what else is there? And they're asking me for the solution, which is exactly where you want to be. Now, that's not because I'm the solution at all. I'm just the facilitator of sharing the solution. So once again, it's not about me. They don't walk out going, oh, Mike's genius, or I have to get Mike's next book. They walk out going, I can't wait to try this because it's about them.
And they've come to the solution instead of you telling.
Correct. It's all about them, not me. You know, all speakers go, oh, I had a line, 100 people waiting for me because they were just so emotionally triggered by my program. And I have honestly believed this. Then you did harm to your audience. If 100 people needed to talk to you because of emotionally where they were after you talked, you ripped off a Band-Aid without putting a new one on. And that's really unfair. And we can all accidentally do it sometimes. Don't get me wrong. In my journey, I've done that. We can make those mistakes. But to intentionally do it, to take pride in they needed me versus I gave them the ability to empower themselves, those are two very different goals.
You know, it brings to mind something that in the speaking world we talk about is, you know, I've heard a lot of people say is you don't do your therapy on stage.
Yes.
And, you know, probably at the beginning when you said you were in anger, you were doing your therapy on stage a little bit, right?
Oh, absolutely. There was some of that. Yes. And not that it was a lot of it, but you just need a little. It's leaking your pain. One of my friends said that. Are you leaking your pain on stage?
Right. And the thing is, you need to do that and be where you can be centered and resourceful for them to work with them. Because as you know, as you're saying, you're far more facilitative than telling.
Yeah, here's the difference. Somebody says something insensitive, triggering in the audience. Now, most speakers, as you know, don't deal with that. Well, with my topic, I do. People take this very personal and they will fire off at you in front of 1,000 people. They don't care because it's very personal. Mm-hmm. And somebody who recognizes themselves as a predator potentially could really fire back because you're not recognizing them, but then in their own head they are. They're like, oh my gosh, I do these things. And they want to yell something out. The old school way of handling that, and you still see some people do this, is go, oh, really? Oh, really? So you think blah, 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 and you just slam the door shut on them. And the whole room's like, whoa, mic drop, you know, like powerhouse moment. Yeah, and nobody who thinks like them wants to hear from me or say anything counter what I believe the rest of the hour. So it was effective at stopping. It was not effective at teaching and engaging versus going, hey, Robbie, that's really interesting. Now, when you said that, how I understood it was this. Is that what you meant? And then suddenly going, no, that's not what I meant. Okay, but what part of that did I misunderstand? Well, I guess that is what I said, right? So now they're understanding that, wow, I don't want to be that person, right? And they'll even come up to you afterwards and go, thank you for helping me realize what I said, how messed up that was, because I don't want to be that person. And they're thanking you versus walking out going, jerk. You just embarrassed me in front of 1,000 people. Thanks a lot.
Right. So here, I mean, it's very clear that your intent is to support people in finding a new way versus shoving your opinion down their throat.
Yeah. And I've been on both sides of this journey, right? Yeah. I started from the, no, you can't think that way versus why do you think that way? So we can have a transformational potential journey. Yeah, here's the difference. You and I, and anybody watching this, you don't change lives. No one changes other people's lives. So all you can do is give them some tools, some insights to choose to transform their own life. That's it. And if you're good at that, they might be more likely to transform their life. Give it a shot, a little step at a time. But if you're coming in going, I'm going to change you, you're holier than thou. You're smarter than them. You're better than them. That's the arrogance that comes off. And I've made all those mistakes versus, hey, I'm just here to have a conversation. Let's talk.
Yeah. And the thing is, you're not going into easy to work audiences sometimes. You're in with the military, you're in with, where there could be some, some strong traditional biases that are there.
Well, and to be fair, the military only represents our country, right? Everybody who's in the military came from our hometowns.
True.
So they're representing our country. So the reason, though, that maybe a military training or even a high school or even a college training, why it's hostile ground, the reason it can happen sometimes, it doesn't most of the time, but why it can sometimes is because they're being forced to go to this about a topic that they've heard before. They're sick of in their own mind. And the last time they heard it, somebody walked in the room and blamed them all. And they made it felt like they were personally attacked for the whole time.
Right.
And so now I'm walking in after someone's done harm on the same topic to an entire audience. So they're hostile because somebody came in hostile to them. At least they felt that way, whether the person did or not. And so, yes, it can be very hostile. And so the quicker I can disarm, the better. I've had friends in the audience who said, oh my gosh, before you started, I heard them saying this is going to be the worst hour. This is going to be, they're like, I've never experienced that as a speaker, to think my audience hates me before I open my mouth.
Yay.
And they don't know you and they don't like you. And they're saying how awful this is going to be. So you have to engage at where someone's at. You just can't come in thinking this is about me winning them over.
Right. But it's respecting their perspective.
Correct.
So really, a lot of what you've been working with, it's interesting. It's bringing to the surface unconscious biases, to use a buzzword, that they have had, so that they can reflect and shift those, which is what's happening now as well with the Black Lives Matter, I believe.
Yes.
That's really what's going on.
There's absolutely a lot of that happening right now. And there's a lot still fighting, like we talked about, taking it personal and becoming very defensive when people are saying, hey, can we just talk about how we're hurting right now? This specific group is hurting right now. Can we talk about this? And it has been for the longest time. It's just now we're front and center discussing this, which is a shame in and of itself. But what's amazing is how many people are becoming defensive, right? It's exactly what we're talking about. Versus stopping and going. We're not saying whether you did or didn't do anything wrong. We're talking about helping people who've been harmed, who have been wronged. If you're taking this personal, the mirror must be reflecting something. Because I didn't call your name. I didn't make a reference to you. I didn't do anything that would identify you except to yourself. And then we have to ask why. Why? And all of us have to do that. If I'm getting defensive, I have to ask why I'm getting defensive. Sometimes it's because we're just tired and in a bad mood, right? Other times it's because of our own personal choices that we know we've made. So let's defend instead of look those closely and go, ugh, I wish I didn't.
Well, and I think too, I sort of had a big aha this weekend. I've been spending a lot of time talking, thinking about this, that, there's this all lives matter backlash that's come back. And I've suddenly realized everyone has their stories. Right? And we've all got different life journeys. Things that we've born, whether it's because of gender, sexual orientation, what will you? And I think people are looking for recognition for their own pain, but it doesn't matter who you are. If you are breathing and human, you have biases against somebody else. And it's to look at what are we contributing. And I think as long as we're concerned about what we are about, it's about it's not going to shift the systemic stuff until we can look at what we're bringing to the table.
Yeah, 100% correct, Robbie. I mean, here's the reality. And there's some powerful memes on this right now. Some really powerful memes on this that, if your child died, you wouldn't want anybody at the funeral to say, well, parents lose their kids every day of the year. All children die. All children matter. That's not what you'd want to hear that day. You'd want to hear my child, because I'm in pain right now, right? And there's lots of memes similar to that. And that's the key factor, is what you just said right there, is what perspective am I taking? Am I taking about me, defensive, or am I taking, how can I be of support to this human being who's in pain? How can I help solve the problem for this person? How can I look outward and help solve the problem? Especially, this is my view, everybody's different on this. I find myself pulled more to individuals or groups of individuals who are not in a system of power, who are not in a position of power. And those are the voices I want to make sure that I am empathizing with, I'm understanding, I'm trying to do in my work. Some of the most powerful aspects of my work is meeting survivors who say, today I realized I have a voice that deserves to be heard. Oh my gosh, that is one of the most fulfilling things I can have happen when I am a speaker. When somebody, because that's somebody gaining their voice, and often not in a society that's giving there a lot of power with that voice. So I want to do everything I can to support that. And that's true right now with Black Lives Matter. We're talking about those who are not, because some people are like, but these lives matter, these lives matter. And often they're naming lives that they do matter, of course, and are already in positions of power. Mm-hmm. Whereas we're talking about those who are not in positions of power and trying to support them and understand that.
Right, who are inequitably suffering.
Yes.
At this point, yes. So coming back to the entrepreneurial journey in this, you have, no one goes through business with smooth sailing for 30 years. You have, I'm sure, encountered things where things have gone, and some are in your, because something you did, some are broader, like 9/11, perhaps, that impacted business. Can you share one such instant, perhaps that happened with you, and how you found the way through, where you may have thought, okay, I don't know if I can move forward?
Ooh, one. I can name a lot more than one. Can I tell two? Because there's two very distinct different ones. All right. So when I started this in college, I went and got a business loan in my last year of college so I could launch a full-time business. I was 23, 24 at the time. I looked like I was 16, 17, and I'm not exaggerating. I wish I was. And I fell flat. Everywhere I went that I got in, they loved it. And they're like, this is incredible. It's powerful. But anywhere else said, we're not bringing some young punk in to talk about this. We don't even let this was in 1990, 91. We're not letting PhDs talk about this to our students. You ain't. And I fell flat. Mm-hmm. And society was in a different place. And then about 8 years later, somebody in the National Speaker Association saw me doing this and said, why aren't you doing this full time? I had left it. And I was doing it very here and there. And I explained my story, and they said, the world has changed. Now they're looking for you. They're looking for what you're sharing. And in 2 weeks, sold everything I had, pretty much close to bankruptcy over the next 6 months, but believed in what we were doing. My wife believed, I believed, and we went for it. So that was one version where you just say, all right.
Entrepreneurial leap.
That was an absolute, and I was very entrepreneurial at that stage of my life. I owned a mobile DJ company, and then I was doing this, and I was doing this. And then I came back to this, which is where I knew I belonged. Yeah. And so sometimes the world isn't ready yet, and then it is. And we can make the mistake of thinking it turned me away, so I'm not going back there. Instead of recognizing, no, we're in a new place, and it's ready now. We're good for this now. So that's one. And on that journey, don't listen to people who are trying to impede the path. When I was young, people said you're too young. When I was 32, people said no one's going to listen to you. You're too old for an 18-year-old to listen to. But yet we grew faster and stronger than ever before and continue to the older I get. So if I had listened to those voices, I wouldn't be here today. The other story is now. Let's go to now with what's happened. Because in early March, I was about to go into my second busiest time of the year. My busiest time to that point of 2020 is March and April. They are especially April. They are a very busy time for me. And within a few days, it's all gone.
Right.
It's all gone. And for people who are not entrepreneurs and who are watching, want to be entrepreneur, nobody's sending you a check when it's your business gone. Nobody's doing that. And so it's on you to figure out how to survive. And massive changes had to take place. Massive cuts we had to make. Lifestyle changes had to be cut. Major changes. And here was the key to surviving what the last 3 months has happened. It was doing this. It was looking where I could serve and just serving for the first month or so, 6 weeks. And then what was interesting was, when I did this over here, people lit up, people engaged, people wanted more. And then recognizing that's where I belong in this time. That's where I need to go in this time. And that has allowed us to totally reinvent, to build a new option of how we can serve. We help people with training and programming. Well, now we're building that through online courses, online programs that when I had built them in the past, didn't really go anywhere, but now are just taking off. And the reason they're taking off now is because before I was building them to create another option. Now I was building them because I could see how I could serve through them. There's a different energy. There's a different approach. I was doing live, which people want, where instead of just putting in online pre-recorded videos up there, which is what most people are doing in courses. So it was an all learning opportunity that changed the game, but it was built on watching where my service was drawing interest and intrigue.
So you were looking at, it's interesting, you were looking at where people were lighting up. In all the things you were doing, you were serving, you were still doing what you loved, but you waited to see where they lit up.
Yes. What happened was, it started with a little YouTube video. This is actually where it started. And I was teaching people how to use Zoom. And I'd only been using Zoom for like 3 weeks.
Really? You've become one of the leading mentors in that.
So, but at the time, don't get me wrong, I had used it, but like very here or there. I'd done one professional event a year before, doing 2 events for an organization using Zoom. That was it. But when this all happened, I'm like, I got to learn Zoom. And I just dug in and learned it and then did a little video helping others because people were telling me they were struggling. I think you're aware of that video. So that video is 1:40 and somebody's like, you just throw it up on YouTube. And then suddenly in our industry, people are like, hey, we're watching your video. I'm like, it's a 2-hour video. And suddenly on YouTube, it's 3,000 views. And you're like, and that made me realize, wait, I can teach online. I didn't even try to teach that thing. I literally just got on and tried to help. And that's all I got to do. Just keep this simple. And then I saw an invitation to go attend a webinar of someone. I watched it and I thought, I could do that. And I put out the offer for a webinar and suddenly it was packed. We were sold out. I was always going to places where people sold out the room and I showed up. Right? And that's what I did for a living. And suddenly people were coming to my program and I realized, wait, there's something here we have that people want. Let's serve. And that's what I'm referring to. Let's serve there. Let's be present there. And that's what then led to the course. And we're developing a membership because it was just listening to what was happening, paying close attention to what people were asking for.
So this actually leads right in and covers what was going to be my next question. Is for a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs now, it's incredibly challenging. For a lot of them, their business is stopped in the tracks. The way that they do business doesn't work. Even though we're starting to open up at different rates in different places. But what you're talking about is find different ways to keep serving and see where the energy is.
Yeah, here's what I learned. I was always under the impression that high energy like me, people only want that in person. Mm-hmm. That on stage is very different than through a screen. That's what I'd heard throughout my career when people talk about online. You're in my clients, we want you in person. We want that energy in the room. Mm-hmm. And then when I did my own webinar and I was just this, I was like, blah, blah, blah. And then I was having fun and making side comments, just playing with the camera with the people that were attending. And they're like, oh my gosh, that was the highest energy webinar I've ever been to. And one person posted, I've already told my wife best webinar. And I'm like, all I did was get on and share. That's all I did. And I realized actually everything I was told was the opposite. The higher energy you naturally are, the more you're fit for digital. Because people don't want low energy. They don't want quiet, boring content through a screen. They want something to awaken them through the screen. They want that energy. They want that passion. And that's when I realized, no, I'm good. This just come and bring the energy. As long as you're consistent in doing that, it doesn't matter where you are.
It's, and also webinars have a bad name because most webinars traditionally have been those free things that are basically someone talking over PowerPoint,
right?
For the whole thing. And I'm finding for me, when I'm doing webinars or live streaming, I've actually gone back old school to Flipcharts.
Yeah.
They work perfectly.
Absolutely. You and I watch somebody named Stu McLaren, and Stu writes on an iPad, but he has a camera over the iPad, right? And so you can see the writing and see Stu. And it's, by the way, that's so easy to do. It's so easy to do that. We've actually figured out in our office if we ever want to do that. Now, I'm not somebody who writes models. That's not what my program is. But if I was, I'd be doing that because it's just keep it simple. Yeah. Keep it simple.
I like to go even simpler with the flip chart.
Right. And I mean, that's simple.
That
right. Exactly. But that does the job.
It does. So, but again, it's following your energy, and the challenge is getting out of the fear to be able to keep serving and then follow the energy as you move forward.
So I just watched a video this weekend of Will Smith, and it went out on Goldcast in the past week, I think, for the first time. And it's talking about when he turned 50. Now, I don't know if that's this year, because I ironically turned 50 this year, but they did just release it, so it could be this year. And how when he turned 50, his father had passed away.
Okay.
A little before that. And he realized even at 50, he was living his life by his father's standards, by other people's expectations. And so he was limiting himself. He was trying to live by what Will Smith was supposed to be instead of being what he wanted to be.
Yes.
And I watched this and I thought, oh my gosh, I have fallen into that trap. I have thought, if I do this, what's so-and-so going to think? If I do this, what's so-and-so going to think? And I have very much done that throughout my life. And what I loved about that video is I immediately started writing for myself about freedom of expectations. I choose to be free of expectations. And the moment I did that, it released all of this. Who's going to think this? What's going to think that? Because that's expectations. Let it go. And he says this, you have to be on yours, live your standards, your goal. And sometimes people are going to be on that journey with you and sometimes they're not. That's okay. And that changed, that little thing over the weekend changed the game because I had already started to let go of I'm not going to hold my voice back, which if anybody's been watching my social media and all over the last 3 weeks, they would see that, wow, Mike's talking more assertively and diving into conversations he hasn't before because I said enough. I'm not holding back.
Yeah.
Not holding back. Now, that doesn't mean I don't care about how I project. That doesn't mean I want to be harmful with my words or reckless with my words, but I'm not holding back when I lead with love, when I lead with respect. And I'm going to support what I believe. I'm going to share it and if those who don't like it weren't going to be my followers, weren't going to be people. And I don't mean my followers as in cultish followers. I mean, social media followers, whatever, people who support our work, follow our work. And that's okay. That's also not against them either. They're on a different path than I'm on. And so I want to serve those who align with where I'm aligning because that's who I'm going to be able to best serve.
Yes. Well, that's amazing. So, Mike, if people are looking to get a hold of you, it's from MikeDomitrz.com.
They can do MikeDomitrz.com or they can do centerforrespect.com. They can do either. Either will do it. But MikeDomitrz.com, they'll at least be able to find me. Centerforrespect.com is sort of where all our stuff is.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. And I really, truly want to thank you for stepping in. I love our conversations, the different places they go.
Well, every time you and I chat, because for those listening and or watching, Ravi and I do chat about some things we're building separately, but at the same time. And I always leave the conversation energized. And a consultant taught me that years ago. He said, choose who you're bringing into your orbit by how your energy is when they leave that orbit. I love that. And I've never forgotten that. I have forgotten that at times. And it's not been good for me. But when I remember that, I make much better choices of who I surround myself with. And you're somebody who always leaves the orbit more positive. So thank you.
Thank you. And you
absolutely.
Because it depletes you otherwise.
Yes.
You know, I really believe that you have to regularly fire some friends.
I wholeheartedly agree. And that people go, well, are you turning people just because? There are some just cause that should turn off friendships.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And it's just a matter of what yours is and mine is. I've never met somebody that if somebody did something truly horrific to them and believed in what they did was wrong, no apology, nothing, that you keep the friendship. No, there are lines you have for calling off that friendship. So it's a matter of what those lines are. And, I remember in college, somebody said, you got to be careful of wanting to fly with the eagles when you party with the turkeys.
Yeah.
That cliche comment, whatever it was. And I remember that. And it doesn't mean that I think I'm an eagle. What it's saying is if I want to fly to be my best self, I got to surround myself with a supportive staff, supportive people, supportive friendships that do all of that.
Yeah. Well, and also to me, it's actually a sign of respect. It's not dissing them. It's like, cool, you want to believe that? Totally respect that. Have a good time. I'm going over here.
I love that, Robbie, because that's something that took me a long time to learn. I'm not here to fix you.
No.
And if we stay in the same orbit, this is going to be me feeling like I need to, and that's not fair to you. So that's not fair to you. It's not fair to me. So I love that you said that it's out of respect. We're on different paths, and that's okay.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you so much, Mike, truly, for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
And we're going to be back every weekday. As I said, the other thing for those of you who are business owners or entrepreneurs, just to let you know, on the 24th, we are having a online conference. I'm so excited about Leadership RX with some amazing lineup of speakers, but also the way that we're bringing this to you, it's almost like being at an in-person event. You'll be able to move tables, network, learn from your peers. Come on down to Leadership RX. Join us on June 24th. So thank you for joining us on this, and I will see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. See you, Mike.
See ya. Thanks for having me, Robbie.